Okay.
All right, you ready to start?
Yeah, let's get started. We're gonna forgo the pledge this time because we are. But Joan, if you can do the roll call, that'd be great.
Wayne Brown, Kay Harrison,
Here.
Mike Parker, Roger Tome,
Here.
Jim Snyder.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And next we need a motion to accept the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
I'll second. Snyder.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Roger. Okay, roll call again, please, Jim.
Kay Harrison.
Yeah.
Roger Tome,
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to ordinance number 2201, an ordinance to amend Title 4 of Rogue Valley Sewer Services Code. And this is the first reading.
This is the first reading. This is our section of our code that covers stormwater management. And there's a number of provisions that are required under the new MS4 permit that we have to add in here. Jenny's gone and kind of restructured the way the code section is. And there's a couple of items in there that we're going to need to discuss in a little bit more detail as far as the timing of implementation. But I think I'll let Jenny step in and kind of give a summary of what we're proposing here.
Sure. So there's three main things that we have to have in our code and that are necessitating a revision to our Title IV, which is our stormwater chapter. The first thing is that we have to define the range of illicit discharges that are prohibited and the actions that are prohibited to ensure compliance. And so we updated the list of things that are not allowed to be discharged into the stormwater system. And there's actually text that came straight from the MS4 permit that's now in our title.
I'm getting down to it, I think. Did I go past it?
It's right there.
Is it?
Okay.
Yeah, so these are all things that are, these are actually things that are allowed discharges. So these are the kind of inclusive list of what can go down into the stormwater system. And then the things that are not allowed to be discharged into the stormwater system, we had the option to either take the specific list from the MS4 permit or to write sort of generic language within our code that encompasses that range of things that are not allowed to go into the stormwater system. And so we previously already had in our code this sort of generic language about what can't go down the stormwater system. And Carl and I discussed that and decided to just keep kind of the generic language. And then this list of things that are allowed to be discharged, we had that specific list in there previously, but that list has changed somewhat. And so I put the updated list from the permit into our code. And the next set of things that we have to have in our code are we have to require construction site operators to create and implement a site-specific erosion and sediment control plan for sites that have a minimum disturbance of 7,000 square feet or more. So this is a big new requirement of the permit. Currently, we only require that down to 1 acre of disturbance. We have to go down to 7,000 square feet of disturbance now. And so there are a number of changes that have been put into the code, into our Title IV to accommodate that. So one of the discussion items that I have called out in here is that this is going to require us to create a new permit type. So we'll have a new permit for between 7,000 square feet and 1 acre, and we'll have to create a fee for that. Typically, RVSS adopts our fees in June for going into effect on July 1. This requirement from the MS4 permit is not required to be in place until February 28th of 2023. So the discussion for the board is, how do you want to go about implementing this? Do you want to follow RVS's kind of typical timeline of resolution and fee adoption? or do you want to do this on a separate timeline? So that's a discussion item for the board.
Okay, Jenny, so we could go with our regular, or we could go with doing it in February of 2023?
Yeah, so it has to be in place by February next year. There's nothing that says it can't go into place
Yeah.
prior to that, and
Well-
really, so we wrote it, we put it into the ordinance for consideration, and I believe we kind of put a trigger in there that the board would adopt it by, implement it by resolution once it's in there. And so the question really is, how do you want the timing to go on that? It's, I always like to tie things to fiscal year, which would put it into effect in July,
Yeah,
which would, be several months ahead of when it's absolutely required, but there's no rule that says we can't do
Do
that.
yeah, I would go with that, but depends on what everybody else thinks, but I like to stick with what we've already got. That way we don't have a hodgepodge of
Mhm.
stuff. And we're updating the ordinance now. We can do that to start
Mhm.
in July 1st. I think that sounds reasonable. What do you think, Roger?
I mean, my first thought was to start December 31st. I mean, implement the ordinance, get the ordinance in place, obviously.
So just a couple of months
approval
in advance. Yeah.
for
calendar, yeah.
July, but then start the fee and review of it in December 31st is my thought. Is there, I mean, I don't know what the city of Medford is doing for their implementation.
I don't know.
Jenny, do you know how the city of Medford is implementing that?
We actually just discussed that this morning. They haven't, I know that they're updating their code here in the next few months. And we didn't actually discuss the date at which they would be implementing this, though.
We kind of need to operate independently of them since they haven't got the decision making to the same point we have. Huh?
I mean,
Yeah, I'm always in favor of a date that makes sense, like the 1st of January or the 1st of a fiscal year.
Yeah,
Because I remember when the federal government switched fiscal years out of the July timeframe for budgetary reasons. But yeah, I'm good with doing it a little bit earlier than the other, as long as you don't think it'll cause confusion in the marketplace out there.
No, I don't think this will.
Do we need to vote on something or just?
no, we're not gonna have a vote on this today. I mean, today is just a discussion in the first reading, and then
Right.
next month we would have. So any changes we want to make to what's in here right now, we would want to discuss now, so we would incorporate it into the final ordinance next month.
yeah, just all of this, we just gotta move forward to it for a second reading next time, but yeah.
Right, but I think we need kind of direction from the board as to whether, so that we can get things together in a timely manner. If you want it to go into effect July 1, then we need to get things together sooner than, if you want it January 1.
All right, so let's do it July 1st. Implementation.
Yeah, good for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a number of changes to the title that will go into effect, and that are basically that we needed to change some definitions and update, put in that new permit structure to be in compliance with this requirement. And then the third major area that we needed to update the title is with regard to post-construction runoff control. We had language in our title already regarding the requirements for post-construction and for reference to our stormwater design manual, but we needed to update some of the definitions within there, and kind of mostly I reorganized what was in there to follow the permit structure a little bit more clearly. So we have to have requirements for long-term operation and maintenance of the private and public stormwater management facilities, and we have to have enforcement procedures to ensure compliance. And so all of that is in the title now.
And just so, just to reiterate, make sure everyone understands, the first thing we were just talking about is erosion control for construction sites. And under the old permit, permits were issued at anything above an acre. With the new permit, that's getting pared down to 7,000 square feet of disturbed area, which is
Pretty small.
pretty small. I mean, it will exclude most single-family home developments, but almost everything else goes in. And in this one that we're talking about right now, the post-construction, that's the permanent infrastructure that's built specifically to manage water quality, stormwater quality. So there's, I mean, that's kind of the two biggest parts of the stormwater program.
Just from my education, I've forgotten the conversion rates. Some number of square feet through 1.0 acres. The square feet that were picked, were they done as a fraction of an acre, or they were just some other derivation to get to the numbers? Because one was like 10,089 or something like that.
Yeah, the 10,890, that's a quarter of an acre. And that's for, so yes, if you read it closely, you will notice that there are two different square footages in there. One is for the county areas that are outside of the city, and there is a stipulation in the permit that county areas can use the quarter acre threshold. So it just causes us to have to do a lot, create yet another version, another threshold of the permit, because we serve these different areas.
Okay, I was just wondering how the numbers came to be square feet versus acres. Thank you.
Yeah, the permits typically use, or I guess has historically used square feet for these smaller areas. I don't know the genesis of it. I guess I don't know.
Okay. My lack of education, I haven't dealt with acres and such things in about 40 years. So.
Okay, so that's all I have for you on that title.
Okay. Roger, do you have any more questions or anything?
No, I don't.
And Jenny, you got it pretty much that we're gonna move this to second reading, and we'll start the in
Yep.
July.
Yes.
Okay, we're good?
I'm good.
Thank you. Do I need any, do I need to make a motion?
I
to
don't
make
think
it?
we need, I think we do a motion to read by title to read the first reading by title only, and then we read it and we don't vote, we just move on. We vote on the motion to read it. And then we read it and then we go till next month.
Okay.
So we do want that, a motion to read by title, do the first reading by title only.
No, so you don't need a motion to advance it to second reading then.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking for that motion.
Roger will move to approve the ordinance. First reading, I actually don't know how to refer to this one. First reading.
Yeah, I think that works.
Okay. I'll try that again. Roger to approve, or move to approve the ordinance 2201. Title amendments to the Rogue Valley Sewer Services Code, noting that this is the first reading.
That works.
Okay. And that's all we need,
Yeah,
right?
yep, you already read it.
Okay, we're happy, good. All right, thanks, Judy, on that one. And next on to.
But we do need a vote on that.
Oh, we did,
Yeah.
okay,
Because they made a motion.
go.
Do I need a second?
We need a second as well, yes.
I'll second. Get it out of the way.
Okay, roll call, please, Joe.
Kay Harrison,
Yes.
Roger Tom,
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're good.
Okay. Personnel policies.
Resolution 2201.
Yes. And so we've talked about this for a couple of months now. So the only changes that ended up making the final cut were section 3.55, which I'll zoom down to. And both of these changes address on-call, this kind of after-hour stuff. So the callback provision says that if you're called back to work more than an hour after you leave your shift or before you start your shift, you get compensated a minimum of 2 hours. So if something happens, 7 o'clock at night, we need people to come back and do work. Regardless of how long they stay, they get paid for at least 2 hours. And we wanted to clarify here how that applies to the on-call person. So, there is one person that is always assigned for on-call who has to respond at all hours. And sometimes that person needs help. And so, that person, has the authority, they can call someone else for help. And if the on-call person calls you and you're able to talk them through it on the phone and not have to physically respond, then you would get compensated for 30 minutes of pay.
Okay.
And one of the reasons we're adding in this is there was some confusion because our on-call person, a lot of our pump stations, they send out alarms, and the alarms typically resolve themselves or can be resolved without having to respond. What we're clarifying here is that's part of the on-call person's duties, that that's not a 30-minute charge every time that a pump station calls them. So that's just, some people were doing it, some weren't. It was kind of a gray area, so we're clarifying that.
Okay, so you're standardizing it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the next section that we are changing is 7.15. At some point, we'll go back and fix all the punctuation too, but that's.
Yeah, I noticed a couple things, because I kind of just glanced through it.
Yeah. Okay, on-call duties. And this is a whole new section, it wasn't there before. But basically, it clarifies what we expect from a person who's on call. So, they get the vehicle, they get the cell phone. They're expected to be in cell phone range and be able to respond within 30 minutes. That wasn't there before. I mean, it was kind of
That's good.
understood,
Yeah,
but we wanted to clarify that. And then also to clarify that if a pump station gives them an automated call and they're able to resolve that's not an extra charge.
I liked what the district expects from you. I like
Oh.
that, actually.
So those are the two changes that we're proposing here. Everything else is staying the same. I guess our recommendation is that we adopt this resolution.
Just an operational type question. If you've got a schedule and you want the people's on call, and as they get close to that date, maybe not on it, and they come down with COVID and they've got to be taken off, you just go to the next person on the list, or is there some rearranging of schedules so that you always have coverage?
Yeah, Shane manages that. I mean, a lot of the guys are happy to take extra duty on that. And so they kind of have a list of who's next up to take a trade or take an extra shift. I don't know if Shane, you want to elaborate on that, but he does have a process in place that works really well to make sure that all the shifts are covered regardless of what might happen.
And you probably have a list of who you're gonna call for this, or if you have a question, or if you need help.
They kind of know, yeah.
That's kind of what I figured.
Yeah.
If I may, Carl,
Yes.
the on-call is pre-assigned before the beginning of the year, so they know exactly what weeks they're required to do on-call throughout the whole next upcoming year. And then we have an on-call rotational list too that people put their names on that want to be called upon in the event someone wants to give away their on-call or trade it or whatever. Then those people are on the list to take that as well. So there's always coverage. And then there's always us managers as well, always filling in the gaps to help out as needed or as necessary in case any of those things fall through. But that's never happened, never even come close to happening. So, but management has filled the gaps many times, especially in the last couple of years. So
It sounds
Well,
like
that's good.
a good system, so.
Yeah.
I like the clarification though on certain things. That's good. Any other questions?
So just a
And
note,
just-
before you make a motion, I noticed that this resolution is the same number as the Title IV resolution.
No, Title
No.
IV is an ordinance.
Yeah, that's different. Ordinance is different than the rest.
Okay,
And just to add to the board, there is a prize at the end of the year for the person who takes the most on-call. They get a championship belt, just like the wrestlers do. They get to share that and keep that for the whole year while they're champion.
That's cool.
So they do have a little bit of carrot out there and some prestige that goes with the on-call.
Do they get to wear it at work to show off?
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah. They get the full Michael Buffer treatment too. When they win it, man, it's a hand up. It's time. You're champion. It's just celebrated. And they get a trophy. You know, it's
That's awesome.
That was
Okay,
a good incentive. I hadn't heard about that before.
yeah.
Good idea.
Just so you know, this last 2021 winner took it 7 weeks in 1 year.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Must not be married, huh?
no life.
You're correct. He is not.
No life.
Good. That was a great call.
All right.
All right, I'll move for approval of resolution 2201, personnel policies update.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please, Joe.
Harrison,
Yes.
Roger Tom,
Yes,
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
All righty. On to resolution 2202, employee compensation.
Okay, so this is another one we've been talking about for several months now, and just somewhat in response to what we're seeing in the labor market. The resolution itself, this has all the numbers on it, and this is, the same form that we typically pass every June. But I want to go back down to actually the assessment I wrote, just to kind of give the detail of it. So what the changes this makes for our maintenance worker positions. Hold on a second. Maintenance worker positions, we're kind of changing the structure of it, and we're changing their names from maintenance worker to collection system operator with 4 grades of operator. And the grades are essentially based upon their level of certification through DEQ, with a little bit of a tweak. In order to get above a grade 2, you have to have some level of crew lead responsibilities. So to get grade 3 or grade 4, you have to have crew lead responsibilities. So a person could have a level 3 or 4 certification without the crew lead responsibilities. For those extra certifications, we're giving them 2% bonus for each level, rather than put them into the next class of operator. And at the same token, there's the potential that a person could have a level 1 or level 2 certification, but also be given crew lead responsibilities. And for that, we would push them up 1 level. So if a person has level 2 certification, but they're a crew lead, we would classify them as a level 3. The same thing applies to our treatment plant operators, and the same exact structure. To get above a level 2, you have to have responsibilities for supervising the plant, but the bonuses would be there. The other changes that so those are the primary changes on classifications. On the wages, we are adjusting a lot of the scales. The inspector position, our stormwater tech position are increased. Our GIS tech position, we're increasing the whole scale. Our finance clerk positions, we're keeping the the bottom end the same, but we are adding to the top end to give a little bit more room to advance.
Yeah, so they don't get stuck.
Right. Because that always is a big issue with a small, relatively small organization like ours. So overall, and then as far as the implementation, the way we are going to do this is if a person is maxed out at the top of their scale, right now under the old system, we would give them a 5% bonus, a 5% raise, and then change their anniversary date to January 1st. If a person is, if for our entry level people, if they're below the bottom of their scale, their new scale, which is our new hires, we're going to put them all the way up to the bottom of the new scale. Won't change their anniversary date, it'll stay the same. And then there's going to be a handful of people that are both at the top of their scale and will be below the bottom of their next scale. And those, and we're going to do just the 5%. So they're actually going to be for some period of time below the bottom of the new classification, but they'll be able to catch up to that. So overall, there's about 11 employees that are going to see an immediate increase because they're at the top. There's 5 that are going to see immediate increase because they're at the bottom, and everyone else, they're not going to see anything immediately, but they're going to have more room to grow into. The effect of this on our budget. So with our second quarter reports, we're almost exactly at 50% of budget for our personnel costs. And depending on how quickly we fill all the, we still have a couple of vacancies, and depending on how quickly we fill that, I'm expecting an increase of about $75,000 for this year, which is a little over 1% over budget. We do have a $500,000 contingency in our general fund that would cover this. So we would go over budget slightly in our personnel budget, but we do have contingencies in place. Looking forward, if all the changes that we have proposed get implemented, I'm looking at an increase of about 7.5% in our personnel costs for next year, and then 3% a year after that. And that does not include cost of living adjustments. And cost of living adjustments, depending on how we approach it, traditionally we have just tied it to the consumer price index for all urban consumers or something like that. And we do that January to January, but in December it was at 7%, which is really high.
Whoa, really high.
So that's something that we are going to need to address as we put our budget together about how we want to approach that. And I just wanted to kind of put a bug in your ear about that, just to let you know, back in the days when we had union contracts, typically we would tie our COLAs to the CPI, but there would be boundaries on it, top and bottom. And I went and looked at some of the contracts that are out there with other agencies out here, and it's kind of interesting. Both Medford and Ashland, with their labor contracts, don't tie it to the consumer price index. They just have a fixed amount that they negotiate, anywhere from 2 to 2.75%, depending on the which contract it is. And then I looked at like Central Point, Eagle Point, Medford Water Commission. They tie it to the CPI, but they put a cap on it. Central Point and Eagle Point, it can be no more than 4%, and the Water Commission is only 3.5%. So that's something to consider. I'm not asking for any decisions today, but when we go to start building our budget, we are going to need to put, we'll know what the number is for January, and we are going to need to build something into when we put together our budget proposal. So that's something that we'll probably need to discuss in a little bit more detail next month.
I think that's really important to pay attention to that. But I also think because it's so volatile, we might have to put a cap on it. But it's definitely, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll definitely gonna have to think about it. So
these are the adjusted numbers, or what's in the the resolution here. And
Uh-huh.
I would just add, because we've had some vacancies that we've been working with, our new engineering tech started yesterday, so we have him in place. And then for our stormwater tech position, we have conducted quite a few interviews, and Jenny's checking references on our short list of 2 candidates right now. So we're hoping to make an offer there fairly soon. One of the candidates is still in school and doesn't graduate until May or June. So that's a consideration there. For our vacant inspector position, we ended up taking our FOG program coordinator and transferring him to an inspector. We're
And
not,
he was happy with that?
yes.
Okay.
And we're not planning on refilling that because that FOG program is not gonna be a separate position. And we're gonna roll those duties in with the inspectors that we have right now. And then the staff engineer position, which is a brand new position, Nick's still reviewing applications and getting ready to schedule some interviews. So that one, no offer's been made yet on that.
So we're down 2, but we're down 2 because we're adding 1. Because we
yeah.
feel,
Yeah.
we were down 2 people, we filled 1 position, and we're adding a position, but we haven't filled the 1 position and we haven't filled the position we added.
So, let me back up. Let me see if I get this right. We had 4 vacancies.
Oh, yeah, that's
We
right.
had a maintenance worker,
Right.
engineer tech, inspector,
Switch-
and
switch.
stormwater tech.
Yeah,
So for the 1 maintenance worker, we replaced that with 2 maintenance workers. For the inspector, we transferred someone internally and created a vacancy. So
okay,
we're net even on the number of employees there.
okay,
The engineer tech, we expect to replace, the stormwater tech, we expect to replace, and then we're still planning to add the staff engineer, which would be an increase of 1 over what we had at the start of this. So that's where we are right now.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Carl, November looked like a really rough month for you for resignations. Was there any commonality or thread through those that you could determine that they're all just independent activities that happened?
I think it was more more coincidence than correlated. I mean, they all our engineer tech, he was more interested in living in a city. He's from New Jersey. He was kind of shocked, I think, by that Medford's not a cosmopolitan city. Our maintenance worker, there were some medical issues there. Our inspector, he took a position with a construction contractor locally. So, he basically took a better job. And our stormwater tech told us when we hired her that her plan was to work until her youngest son graduated from high school, which happened. So, she stuck around a little bit longer than actually what she initially said she was wanting to do. But so I don't think there's any theme to it. It just kind of things happen seem to happen all at once.
Just bad luck on your part.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Want to make sure we didn't do something bad that they all hated.
Okay. So now any other questions before we get a motion for a resolution 2202?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. I'm looking for that motion, please.
I'll move for approval of resolution 2202, employee compensation plan.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Kay Harrison,
Yes.
Roger Tom,
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes,
And Roger, yeah, I understand we're doing things backwards according to. Usually you're supposed to do motion, then the discussion, and then
Oh,
but
that's
that's
true.
when we've always done it.
Well,
Well, I did the presentation
not
and then the
bored.
motion. Yeah.
board discussion.
Yeah.
After the motion.
Yeah. I don't talk during the in between.
No. Okay, anyway,
Okay.
Resolution 2203, appointments to the budget committee.
Okay, so as you recall, both Gary Hall and Mike Burrell Jr. Decided to not seek another term as on our budget committee. Mike had been on since like 2004. He'd been here for a long time. So I put out requests to, I contacted local cities, the city managers and the mayors of the cities we serve to see if they had people interested. We talked about trying to reach out to some of the Spanish speaking community, and I contacted, oh crap, sorry, I can't remember the name. It's an organization that is promotes Latin leadership in OLLA, Oregon Latin Leadership Association. I contacted them. I didn't really get a whole lot of response on that, but I did get 2 people in talent expressed interest. Eleanor Panamaroff, she's on the city council. She's got a computer science engineering and medical background. She's kind of impressive. And she was interested in Anna D'Amato, also works in the medical industry. So, and she's a resident of Talent, has some budget understanding. So they both seem really capable
Cool.
people and are willing to do that. So that would fully staff our budget committee if we appoint them.
Sounds good. We need a motion for this too, please.
Let's appoint them by resolution 2203. Appointments to the budget committee.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Kay Harrison,
Yes.
Roger Tom,
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes,
Just a side note, these are 2 gals. So I won't be the only gal. That's cool. Thank you. Financial update, please.
Okay, so you guys have the second quarter of fiscal year 22, and I only had 2 things to note. One is on page 5, the first line item on other revenues. You'll see we're at a little over 200% of our budgeted revenue, and that's just because we had 3 special assessment loans pay off that we didn't budget for, so that's good. And then the second item, as Carl had mentioned on payroll, also materials and capital for the first half of the year were within budget on those items as well. So that's all I had for the second quarter. Any questions?
I'm good.
We're doing good with construction erosion control permits. That looks like.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, there's a lot going on with stormwater projects right now.
that's cool. Okie dokie. Thanks, Brenda.
You're welcome, thank you.
It's okay. That's Nate, right?
Nick, are you with us?
Yeah, am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
So instead of hard.
Okay, it's all right. So yeah, as Carl mentioned, I just wanted to give a little background. We're pretty excited about our new engineering tech hire, at least I am. He's a bit of a known quantity. In the past, we've had, for at least the past 5.5 years, we've had a few different kids that are just out of school, and so they required quite a bit of training. The tech that we got is a local guy, actually used to work at City Medford, and he contacted me out of the blue. He resigned. It was part of that great resignation that James alluded to earlier. The City of Medford's going through the same thing, and it was kind of a surprise. He contacted me out of the blue. He resigned before we had the position open, and then we had the position open. He called me and said he was interested, and he's a guy with 20 years of experience, design experience. So he's been a tech at City of Medford for quite a while, and some other places. here in town as well as in California in the past. So he brings a lot of needed experience and a lot of very little requirement for training, which is a real big pickup for us. So we're gonna have some good horsepower on the design end, as well as running some of our programs.
For family,
I think so.
What's that?
and he's gonna fit good into us.
Yeah, I actually, when I worked at the city of Medford, I actually worked with, his name's Craig Howe. I worked with him for about 5 years at the city of Medford. And so I had heard that he had resigned, and then I was wondering what he was going to do. And then he ended up calling me just randomly. And I was super surprised that he was interested. He could have gone with the demand for engineers right now, he could have gone into any of the private firms in town and just sat right down and had a job. So we're pretty excited to land him.
I want to elaborate on something real quick, and just make sure everyone understands that all of the engineering techs we've hired have been adults. They're not kids.
This is true. Child labor laws have been abided by completely. Everything's so. Yeah, and Craig is definitely not a kid, for what it's worth. But anyways, yeah, we're pretty excited about what we're going to be able to do here in the future. That being said, I'll start with the project updates. The West Glenwood is complete. The design is complete and ready to go. We've done the procurement. We started the procurement process, but it's going to take a while to get some of the mechanical equipment for this project, meaning a few more weeks than normal. So, but I do know all of the pipe and fittings have been ordered for that project. Shady Cove Pump Station number 6 is very similar. It's essentially the same type of design. We still have to submit to DEQ on that one. Or no, we just submitted to DEQ. We need approval from DEQ. Shady Cove Pump Station number 4 abandonment. This is a new one on this report. It's about 80% done. We had I can't remember. Yeah, well, I may have told you guys about this one before. It's a pump station that was installed years ago, and a new pump station was installed with a subdivision in Shady Cove, and we're able to abandon the old pump station and reroute all of the gravity flow to the new pump station. So we traded an old pump station for a new pump station, essentially. We'll bid that one out in this summer. If you go down Shady Cove Pump Station, year of the pump station, I guess. Shady Cove Pump Station 2, this is a new project. This is a pretty substantial pump station in our system. It's either the 3rd or 4th largest pump station that we have. And it actually, you can see the sewer shed there. It's essentially probably a third of Shady Cove. And there's a 6-inch force main that goes under, 8-inch force main that goes under the river and then ties back into our system, which discharges at the treatment plant just to the south. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop a new fiberglass wet well and liner in the bottom of it, which has mounts for new flight pumps, and we're going to put the Smart Run VFDs on that to remain consistent with the rest of our pump stations that we've updated in the past few years. So we hope to get that one done and out to DEQ pretty quickly for a construction this spring or summer. So, and then moving on to the next one. This next one's a really small little filler project for our construction crew. It's just a sunken manhole, and they have to chase it's a T or a cross intersection where there's 4 pipes that have to be chased back and brought to grade. Again, they'll probably start that right after Glenwood Pump Station's done. Arborwood Pump Station is complete. We had a really nice fence put up around that. It's really close to some residential houses, and it ended up looking really good. The construction crew did a good job picking out the type of fence, and they got some nice hinges and some architectural handles on the cedar fence. It looks pretty good.
Good.
So Central Point Force Main Rehab, this project is just about complete. the contractor's finishing up some punch list items out there. And I do know that that area is in really hot demand for some development here pretty quick. You Central Point folks are probably aware of it. It's out on Gephardt Road and BB Road out in that area. There's a couple subdivisions planned out there right now. So one thing on that is that we're going to end up lining the remainder of that 12-inch concrete that force main that we replaced. So we're not going to have to dig and replace the rest of that because the rest of it has pretty adequate grade. It'll be lined hopefully this coming winter. So done pump station replacement. Got a little bit of movement on this. We're just working out the final kinks. The pump station's up and running. We have a couple little, we have one big procurement issue with the 30-inch knife gate valve, which the contractor says is on order and should be shipped any day, but he's been saying that for about a month. The only other actual physical item that needs to be constructed are a couple pipe supports on our 30-inch force main. And once those are in, that's basically it for the actual physical work. And then it's just closing out the contract from there on out. But I do know the other notable item on this one is the Energy Trust is going to be installing some monitoring equipment out there, and hopefully we'll get some money back. Carl's been spearheading that with that group. RHT is the organization that is running that, and it's basically a net benefit on power consumption based on the new equipment that we put in. So I think you said, Carl, we're looking at maybe $50,000.
Yeah.
That's not shabby.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, for the amount of work that we had to do and administrative work that we had to do to get it, it's pretty good. So, yeah, that's what I have for now.
Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to say that concerning the Arborwood, a new nice fence was a small thing to do, but it was a very nice thing to do for people that lost a lot in the fire
Yeah,
and all the trauma they went through. So that was kudos. Thank you for doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to give credit to the construction crew and the maintenance end on that. That was their idea, and it ended up looking really good. So
That was,
Very good.
that was great. That's why we like, yeah, that's good. All right, stormwater, Jenny.
Great, so we covered the Title IV revisions. The only other thing I have for you is on the Coleman Creek to Glenwood Regional Stormwater Facility project. So this is the project that we're working jointly on with Jackson County and ODOT to create a regional stormwater facility. And I had brought to you the memorandum of understanding, I think in November, that was to be signed, and you guys approved it and signed it. And after we did that, Jackson County requested some changes to the memorandum of understanding. And so I'm bringing it back to you again to approve the revised version. And the changes that Jackson County requested basically are that they want to, they've stated in here explicitly that they're not going to be charged for any, I think, maintenance of the facility or construction of the facility. So currently, the design and engineering is being done by ODOT. Construction will be split between RVSS and ODOT, which I don't think that's stated in here, but that's the verbal agreement. And then maintenance will be carried by RVSS.
Okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
So Jackson County is just providing the land.
yeah.
Okay. Right, yeah.
So this is an area just on Highway 99, just north of Phoenix. And like what it says, there's about 125 acres that are going to drain into it. And by building this facility, we will address the stormwater quality issues for that entire area. So
Is that big?
If you scroll down, Carl, it shows the map of it.
oh, okay. It's on Glenwood Road. You can't see it from the highway.
Oh, okay. then
It's just
not
it's a
what
big open field. So this is Glenwood Road here. And they made it pear-shaped because it's Medford, you know. It's kind of cool. But it's right along the Greenway. You'll be able to see it from the Greenway. And then, you know, our secondary interest in that is that, you know, it should be kind of a nice facility with interpretive signs and benches and, you know, walking trail, stuff like that. That was actually part of the justification for the county letting us use that, because that land, it has some kind of special designation of how they got it, but it's
can only be
dedicated
used
for outdoor recreational uses. And so in order to have a stormwater facility qualify that, it has to have some kind of walking trails around it, that sort of thing. So it'll kind of be incorporated into the Greenway.
Okay. Okay, good. Interpretive, like for wildlife.
Yeah, and that's kind of that. I mean, that's part of the
There's all
stormwater
kinds of
program
different
is
wildlife you can view out there.
right. Yeah.
Well, it'll be interpretive for the purposes of stormwater treatment. I mean, that's what we will put a sign up for.
Yeah, I know that's our
Yeah.
part. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jenny. Anything else?
So I just need a motion to
Oh, yeah.
approve that.
Okay. Roger,
That's not a
Jim?
resolution. It's just a motion
Yeah.
to approve the MOU with Jackson County and NODOT.
I'll move to approve the MOU Q015 or Q015. Coleman Creek to Glenwood Regional Stormwater Facility.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Dee Harrison,
Yeah.
Roger Tom,
Yes.
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, O&M updates. Shane.
All right, good afternoon. Last month, it was business as usual for us. There's no significant changes in any of the footages or lagoons, gallon septages received in special cleaning. We were able to fight off any weather conditions and had no significant issues or problems whatsoever. The only thing that the biggest fight is fighting the amount of people that have days off for the holidays. So, you know, we run a little skimpy toward the middle to the last half of the month, but other than that, no issues. Pump stations, we did have a pump failure alarm. Pump number 2 had a clean out cap stuck in the volute. It sounds weird, but not for that pump station. That's at the Phoenix trailer park there off the freeway. And believe it or not, that happens quite frequently because they have the little clean out caps that the RVs connect onto. So they end up losing them. So it's either a clean out cap stuck in the volute or a sewage drainage hose from a trailer. That's typically what ends up in the pump. So, so no big deal there. And then Ross Lane, we had another pump failure. Our number 1 pump went bad, so we're currently awaiting for our new pump to arrive to replace it. While I was putting this together, we did receive our 2 brand new pumps for Justice Pump Station, and those were installed today. And in the current environment, the procurement issues that we're having, it's actually far more cost effective to just replace the pump rather than rebuild it, because they're charging erroneous prices for parts because they'd rather have them to put new pumps together than sell miscellaneous parts to repair old pumps. So it could, in this case, in Justice Pump Station, it was only another $1,800 per pump to replace them brand new than it was just to buy the parts to rebuild it. So we're looking at the same issue with the Ross Lane Pump Station too. It'll almost be as expensive to rebuild it than it would just to purchase a brand new one. So, and we'll get the new pump a lot faster than the parts. The parts seem to get hung up in shipping as well. So, building and grounds. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, Shane, you're doing good. You got to look at that big picture of how things work, and yeah, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, thank you. Building and grounds, we finally got all the new LED lights installed on the admin building, and it got a couple of new lights installed on the poles and the parking lot poles. That's probably where we'll be at. I'm afraid to keep going with this because our next door neighbor, I don't want to offend them and, end up blowing them out with an abundant amount of lights over there. So I think what we have now is definitely doing the job, probably more so than ever. And I'll stick with that unless Carl wants me to put some more lights on in the parking lot. But I think they're probably a good give and take here and not upset the next door neighbors too much. So, and that's it. It appears that in light of all the issues with vehicles, our 2 dump trucks are on schedule to be delivered here in the next few months. So I was able to leverage our buying power and keep us in line while other people got kicked out of line and don't get any chassis that they ordered. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but good for us.
Yeah, well,
I think it
well,
is.
they can get some used dump trucks, so.
Yeah, I got 2 used ones I could sell.
The 2 pump stations that went bad, was there much of a negative impact on the customers in either of those areas, either in terms of quantity or duration of time?
No disruption in service whatsoever because we have 2 pumps in both of those stations, so we have the redundancy. So no disruption of service whatsoever.
Very good. Redundancy is always good.
It is. And you're right, the Arborwood fence project that came out spectacular, and the folks out there were kind of stuck with what the generic industrial style fencing. So it just putting back that kind of fencing when you're rebuilding it just didn't make any sense. So we opted to go with a nice cedar fence that everybody, or at least the person on that corner lot, can tie into, and that person has to look at it every single day. So now they have something nice to look at every single day rather than a metal fence with some slats in it. And the person on the end there, Fred Scapp, he's really excited to have that. And he was really appreciative that we, took that into consideration and thought about everybody out there when we did that. So everybody out there is really appreciative of that.
A nice visual is always appropriate. But it's
Yeah, we scored some points.
That's a good thing. Thanks, Shane. Anything else?
Yep, that's it.
Good.
Thank you. And I do want to say thank you to the board for approving the new wage structure. I know that speaks volumes to the staff over here that you do care about them, and they're very appreciative of it. And I just want to extend our thanks as well.
Well, we appreciate the staff. We appreciate all the hard work you guys do. Well, everyone does, both in the office and out. You guys are great.
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I agree.
We've talked about almost everything here already. We did our personnel policies, our stormwater ordinance. On the COVID-19, I mentioned that there had a person from our treatment department. We actually had 2. I don't think that they were related, but they are both doing well and back to work.
That's good.
So that's good news. The budget committee, we did the staff issues we talked about. Craig started yesterday. The stormwater tech, like I said, we've got that down. I think there's 2 finalists that Jenny's considering checking some references right now. And then the staff engineer, we're still looking at that. And then the last thing is on board education. Last month, Roger asked basically for some background on the annexation of Shady Cove. And I put together a little 15-minute presentation on all of our annexations, if you've got time for that.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right. Well, I'm gonna do some screen share adjustments here real quick.
I'm gonna sit and do some signature
I
stuff.
have to remote into my other computer. refresh this. There we go. Okay. So Roger asked about Shady Cove, but I figured we've done a lot of annexations, so I kind of wanted to just give you a real brief, and I apologize for the lack of color and beauty of this, but that's just the way
That's
it is.
okay.
So first one that I want to talk about is Eagle Point. Eagle Point, back in 1980, there was a supplemental regional agreement that allowed for Eagle Point in Jacksonville to connect to the regional treatment facility for $59 per ERU. And they turned around and they paid $56,000 to connect. Unfortunately, they were not able to secure the funding to build a pump station to make the connection. And in 1986, they asked for the money back and we gave it back to them.
With interest?
Was that Jim?
Said with interest?
I believe not. Can you guys see this?
No, I can't see anything.
Okay, hold on a second. That's because I'm not screen sharing that.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, let's see. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so there's that. Let me get to this. And there, okay. Is that better?
Nope. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, no, I think they just got paid back the amount they paid. So then fast forward 10 years later, 1995, there was another supplemental agreement where allowed Eagle Point to connect at a cost of, it was 1.3 million. So that delay.
Little increase there.
Yeah, you know, in 95, they said you had to pay the current SDCs for every building that's connected. We entered into a maintenance agreement with Eagle Point. They transferred all their sewer assets to our control. They issued a GO bond to pay off the debt to make an intertie. We agreed to pay them $30,000 a year to continue to bill for sewer service, and there was a 3% annual increase built into that. And they agreed to hold an annexation vote within 5 years. In 3 years, 1998, they had the vote, they voted to annex into BCVSA. So the net result of all this, here we go. The net result, we tracked the costs in Eagle Point separately for 5 years, from 96 to 2001. We spent a total of $5.8 million in that time frame. And a lot of that was the construction of the pump station and force main. Our total revenues were $5.5 million. So we ended up with a deficit of about $300,000. And there was an outstanding debt of $1.5 million at that time. So that you know, there was a great deal of expense in that. Right now, Eagle Point is about 9% of our system. So that brings in close to $1 million a year in revenues, sewer revenues.
So this raises one of my questions about
Yeah.
the annexation thing is, so there's 1.5 million debt that the city had.
Yeah, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit because they had a GO bond. And so they continued to pay on that through the GO bond. We collected, that was all dedicated to us to help pay that off. And I don't remember when that got paid off, but it is paid off.
So we think BCVSA was flush with the process?
I think so. I mean, you know, you've got a big debt there, but you've added 10%, you know, close to 10% expansion, you know, that went on, that goes on. So right now, like I said, we're bringing in as far as sewer revenues, close to $1 million a year from within Eagle Point. So in that particular one, you know, it's and unfortunately we stopped track. We don't track once the annexation happens, we don't track the expenses separately. So I can't say, how long it took to recover that, but, I think it's been recovered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Phoenix. So Phoenix was one of the original parties to the regional agreement. In 1978, we entered a maintenance agreement with them, and it was pretty simple. It was we'll go in there and clean your sewers when you ask us to, and we'll bill you for it. We did have a couple of joint use agreements in 1978 and 1990, which allowed us to have services outside the city on Camp Baker Road and Culver Road that would flow through the city. In 1994, we had another maintenance agreement it's a renewal to have us maintain some of the sewers inside the city. And in 2004, we had the big one where they transferred all of their assets to our control. We took over the billing responsibilities in Phoenix. They actually transferred $240,000 of their capital reserves to us. And we agreed to lower the rates within Phoenix. And there was an agreement that there would be an annexation vote no later than November 2006. The annexation happened in 2005. Again, that was overwhelming. That was better than 90% support for these annexations. We did track our costs separately for those 2 years. We spent $600,000 and had $800,000 coming in. So we actually had a net increase in that short period of about $250,000. And right now, Phoenix is only about 3% of our total service area.
This all happened before I moved to the Rogue Valley, so thank you.
Jacksonville, in 1974, Jacksonville had the option to join the region for $89,000. And Central Point was pretty vocal in objecting to that. They didn't think that was nearly enough. 1980, there was the supplemental region agreement that I mentioned before that allowed Eagle Point and Jacksonville to connect. Jacksonville also agreed to that. And they actually became a partner to the region in 1981. They paid almost $45,000 to Medford for the treatment plant and $130,000 to BCDSA for their part of the interceptor. Let's see. In 93, we signed an agreement to maintain their sewers. And again, this was kind of they were going to call us when they needed help, and we were going to help them, and we were charging for that. 2003, we had the big maintenance agreement where they transferred control of all their sewer assets to BC. We were RVSS by then. Jacksonville continues to bill for services, and we pay them an annual fee of $20,000. And I would note that has never changed. It's been almost 20 years, and almost every year, Jeff Alvis from the city says he wants to change that, and we've never quite got around to it. The agreement did call for an annexation vote by November 2006, and in 2005, they went and voted to annex. So the costs on this one, we did track those separately for 2 years. We spent $780,000. We recovered $520,000 of that. So it was about $250,000 in the hole. A big part of that was right at the time we took over, there was a really big capital project that was going on at 5th Street. And it was a really big project that was already planned, but then we took over the implementation of it. And again, Jacksonville's pretty small. They're only about 4% of our total revenue. Central Point.
Those rascally.
Oh, there's rascally stuff. I'm going to tell you some of the rascally stuff.
I was around for some of it.
So Central Point was one of the original parties to the agreement. In 1972, we had a joint use agreement that allowed us to connect service to the old Central Point force main, which Nick has been talking about for the past few months. We're finally getting around to rehabilitating that.
Yeah.
In 74, they wanted to connect to the West Medford trunk free of charge. And we told them no. 75, we had another joint use agreement that allowed them to do that. This is an interesting one because I can't find the actual agreement. I can find references to it in the minutes where the board approved it, but I can't find the actual document, so I don't know what the terms were for that. And then in 82 and 88, we had a couple of other joint use agreements, which is pretty common, because we've got stuff outside the city and that sort of thing. 1995, we got into some kind of dispute with Central Point over service areas. And they went so far, the city manager at the time got a bill introduced in legislature that would, I didn't even finish that sentence. It would dissolve all sanitary districts in the state.
Was that Rusty?
No, it was, he was the mayor.
Yeah, it was, I remember, I can't remember the dude's name, but he was Rascal.
Kucera, Dave Kucera, is that? I don't know, but
I don't think that sounds right.
but then just to show you how fast these things can change, within a year, we had an agreement on the service area boundary. And then we entered into a maintenance agreement with them. And the maintenance agreement, we agreed to spend $1.1 million in capital improvements in 5 years. We took over the billing. We lowered their sewer rates. We took 2 of their employees. We took control of all of the sewer infrastructure, and they agreed to call for an annexation within 5 years. So, I mean, you go from, 1995, when they're trying to abolish all sanitary authorities in the state just to be mad at us, to the next year where we're, it's a big happy marriage. It's interesting how fast that changes.
There was a change in a lot of things.
Yeah. So in 2000.
Sounds like a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Negotiations.
Yeah.
It could be.
So they voted in 2000 to annex. Again, that was over 90% support. We did track our finances separately from 97 to 2001, spent $3.8 million and brought in 2.9. So there was just under $1 million net spent on Central Point in that period of time. But Central Point, that's a big part of our district now. I mean, there 18% of our customers are in Central Point, so that definitely was a big deal.
And I think you got a lot of stuff fixed now, but it was a mess. The sewer stuff was a mess. And it had some old stuff that was dangerous. There's asbestos, there's all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, and I think right after that agreement passed, there was like a huge failure. One of the main lines collapsed. And so that was one of the reasons, we agreed to spend $1.8 million in capital projects. We ended up spending, we agreed to 1.1, we ended up spending about 1.8 because, once you start scratching the surface there's a lot of problems that revealed themselves.
Because it hadn't been maintained or anything for, really taken care of.
Yep. So now get to what the first question was Shady Cove. So Shady Cove has a pretty good history too. Believe it or not, back in 1974, Shady Cove proposed to join BCDSA. And this was like right after the interceptor was built. This was really early on. The initial proposal also included Prospect, and Shady Cove had no sewer at the time. I mean, they wanted to join BCDSA and have their sewer built. The annexation vote failed badly. So that didn't happen. Moving forward, Shady Cove actually built their entire system, the treatment plant and most of the collection system in the early 80s, about 82 or 83.
It was all septic prior to that?
I imagine, yeah.
Or just straight to the road?
Or just straight, yeah. Anyway, so we, in 93, they had some problems. They lost some operators, so we agreed to help them operate their treatment plant. And there were some talks about a long-term maintenance agreement, but they ended up hiring some operators. So those discussions stopped. In 96, they asked for information about joining the regional system. And this was kind of along the same time that Eagle Point was connecting. And One of the reasons that there's two force mains coming from Eagle Point is because there was anticipation that Shady Cove might be connecting. It would have been about a 10-mile force main. It's a big deal. Didn't happen, but there's capacity for it in Eagle Point. In '96, they asked BCSA to take over maintaining their system, and we told them to go away and come back in a year and ask again. And I don't know why, but that's I guess we weren't really in a position to provide them much assistance at that point, or didn't want to get involved in it. And then in 2005, we had another maintenance agreement with them, and this was kind of along the lines of a lot of the other ones we had, where we told them, if you need help, call us and we'll come out and we'll clean the pipes, TV, whatever you want, and just bill you for it. And then in 2001 is when we did the first 5-year maintenance agreement. And they agreed to pay us just under $400,000 a year to operate all of their system, included a certain amount dedicated to capital. We assumed control over all their infrastructure. We had 2 employees transferred from Shady Cove to our VSS. That was a 5-year agreement. When that expired, we re-upped and got a 10-year agreement. We increased the amount that they were paying us. And we had an agreement that we identified a bunch of major capital projects that they agreed that they would pay for directly, and that they would call for an annex sometime before the end of 10 years. They had an election and they got a new mayor, and the new mayor wanted to just get it over with and do the annexation. So 2 years later, 2 years into our 10-year contract, we approved I call it a franchise agreement. It was kind of a pre-annexation agreement, and it basically spelled out all the terms and conditions and how we would operate if the annexation passed. They continued to bill for services, for sewer service. We're paying them $50,000 a year for that.
They kind of needed that money too.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's that kind of funds their city hall. They do impose a 7% franchise fee on all of their billing. And we didn't talk much about that, but we do pay franchise fees to the city of Phoenix and the city of Central Point and the city of Eagle Point. So this isn't, it used to be unheard of, but now it's heard of. And so that's not, that was just
Phoenix first or Central Point?
Phoenix was first.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did agree to lower the monthly sewer rate from $46 to $44 and lock that in place for 2 years. And they agreed to transfer all of their reserve funds to us. So then the vote was held. It had about a 65% approval, which is a lot less than the other cities we had. There was actually a pretty organized opposition to the annexation, was led by the former mayor. A lot of people didn't think that was a good idea. We did track our costs for those 8 years from 2012 to 19. We spent $3.9 million and total revenues were 4.6. So there was a pretty big increase. And I will say 2 things on that is, one of the things that we did while we were operating that plant is we did start taking septic waste. That generated a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's really hard on the treatment plant. We don't do it anymore because we do that at the lagoons instead.
Yeah.
And then they had over $700,000 in capital reserves that they had been saving to pay for some of their capital projects, and they turned that over to us. So we ended up with a pretty big net gain on that, those operations. We did inherit about $1.9 million in outstanding debt, and that's pretty long-term stuff. I mean, I think that's going to be paid off, many years from now. But and those payments are all kind of factored into the sewer rate out there. We generate about $770,000 per year, which is about almost 8% of our total revenue. We split this. we take 25% of that goes into our general fund to cover collection system operations, and then the rest goes to our treatment fund. Those numbers came when we first set the rate. We set the collection system rate equal to what the collection system is everywhere else, and it just happened to be a nice number. And so we've just stuck with that number. There's no obligation on that. That's just our own budgeting practices, how we've done that. So, so overall, Shady Cove has definitely been a net positive on that. And that's the end. But as far as the annexations go, I mean, you look at like one like Eagle Point or Central Point, where it looks like we just pumped a whole bunch of money into it to bring those on, and it's true, we did. I mean, we ended up by the time of annexation, we were in the red pretty deep just looking at that. But I think overall, when we look at it at the big picture, Eagle Point itself is bringing in close to $1 million a year in revenue. Central Point's more than twice that. It is in the long run, it is financially beneficial for everyone, because you look at and all the places where we've done annexations have also been accompanied with decreases in user rates. So,
And the service is good.
I think so. Yes, Roger.
So one of the questions I've wondered about is like the outstanding debt.
Uh-huh.
That we may have, I don't know where else we may have outstanding debt, but if we considered paying that off out of our extra capital.
I have not. We could. We certainly could. But I think I mean, it's something that we should probably look at. I think in a high inflationary climate, if you've got fixed rate debt, it's probably good to hold on to it.
Well, it depends what your long-term, I mean,
Yeah.
What are you getting on is it 10 or 11 million capital reserve we have, seems like?
Something like that, yeah.
And so what are we getting interest
Yeah.
on that? I don't know if that's interest or is it in a
Yeah, that's a good point.
equity fund?
Yeah.
That is something, okay, well, I can certainly, Yeah.
Roger makes a good point. It might
Yeah.
not be a bad idea to take a look at.
yeah, we've done it before.
Yeah.
Where we've paid off, millions of dollars in debt to be rid of it. And I can certainly, we can certainly look at that. Now, Shady Cove, it's a lot of I mean, they do have some of it that's a GO bond. Some of it's, I have to look at the structure of the debt to see, if we're able to pay it off early. Because, back, I think, was it 2013, we did the big refinance. We took all of our debt and we refinanced it. We had some really nice interest rates. And I think it was 13.
Or 14.
Yeah, somewhere around that. But
Yeah.
we were able to basically save about $60,000 a year in interest rates. But we're locked in. We can't, there's no early prepayment option on that. So I don't know if that's the case at Shady Cove or not.
That would be good to look at to see.
Yeah.
And because especially if there's different portions of it, some of it we might be able to pay off.
Yeah, that's true.
And
And actually, that's one of the things that they did before the annexation, is they did pay off one of their loans before they gave us that $700,000. So that was part of it. I didn't go into Gold Hill here because there hasn't been an annexation, but just let you know where we are on that. We have a 5-year maintenance agreement with Gold Hill, and that expires in June. And I was just actually watching their goal setting sessions on their YouTube channel this morning. And this is from last week, but it looks like their intent is to put out an put the operation of their treatment plant out for bid, which is kind of not something that we typically do. So we'll need to look at that.
it's a little weird.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what direction that's going, but that's something that we're going to have more discussions on over the next few months for sure.
That's Shady Cove.
That's Gold Hill.
Yeah.
Oh, Gold Hill.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Shady
Shady
Cove
Cove is annexed. I mean, Shady Cove is us. Yeah.
So when did they build the treatment plant in Shady Cove?
Shady Cove was 82 or 83, somewhere around then.
you didn't say that, I don't think you said that on the slide, right?
I didn't write
It
it
was
down,
like-
no.
Okay.
I thought I mentioned it, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they went and they got some big loans in the early eighties and built the treatment plant and the entire, or most of the collection system. As one
That's
big
why they
project.
have that big outstanding.
That
That's
is,
part of it,
yeah, that is part of it. They did a major remodel in the late nineties on their treatment plant also.
The,
So,
the treatment plant's not too bad. It's not, it's like Gold Hill is almost a dumpster fire.
yeah, Gold Hill's bad, but it's gonna get rebuilt most likely. Shady Cove is actually really in good shape. You should come out and see it sometime.
I guess I should.
Yeah.
And so they actually negotiated with BCDSA prior to building the treatment plant?
Yeah.
And that didn't go anywhere. That's why I was
Yeah.
that's where I lost the timeline.
Yeah, it was in the
Right.
mid-70s. They
Uh,
talked about annexing and it just failed. And I don't, and back then, both sides had to vote. So Shady Cove voted against it and then BCSA voted against it. No one wanted it, but
It would have involved them building a pump station to the sewage treatment.
I don't know what, I think it would have,
Well, guess
I think they would have involved building a treatment plant and doing it more or less the way they did it.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's why,
But-
you probably didn't want to take that on.
Yeah, I mean, that was, that was an interesting one. But yeah, like I said, I think it, that's worked out really nicely for us so far.
Okay, thank you for that
Yep.
update, Carl. I appreciate that.
Okay,
I like going over it every once in a while too, to refresh. Help me remember all the stuff.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily mean for that update to trump the update that you were planning for the last 4 months.
no, that's good.
I don't, and I forgot what that was now, but you were gonna do an update like the last 4 months and we've run out of
Yeah.
time. Is that still on your list of things to do?
I'll do, what my goal is to do one every month and try to keep it to 10 or 15 minutes. Just, I've got a list of topics that I
Oh,
think
okay,
might
so
be
what was the
interesting.
specific thing you were gonna do?
No,
the last 4
it's,
months?
yeah, I started this BC before COVID. And we did it for a couple of months and then things got kind of squirrely and it fell away. And then it's something I think, especially since we've got some new board members, there's a lot of historical stuff and it's I don't expect anyone to memorize it, but it's nice to it exists.
Yeah.
You kind of know where we've been on a lot of this stuff. We've got intergovernmental agreements all over the place, and I don't expect you guys to know the details of all of them, that have been in place for a long time, but you should know that they exist. I mean, that's something that I want to make sure you're aware of.
Yes, you should keep those files in the archive somewhere,
I have them.
so the next guy can go, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
Hey, Carl.
Yes.
Hey, you'd mentioned that Gold Hill was talking about an RFP for the operation of the treatment plant. Did they mention anything about the collection system? And would that be something you would even entertain?
For enough money,
I'm not ready to start talking about that just yet. I just saw that this morning, and so I'm still processing my feelings.
You got to go work out those feelings. I
I
understand.
gotta work them out, yeah.
if it's PKD or. Okay, do we need a motion for adjournment? Is there
We
anything
have the
else?
claims.
Oh, the claims, we
Yeah.
gotta pay the bills.
I'll move for approval of the claims of this month, January claims.
A second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Kay Harrison. Roger Tom,
Yes,
Jim Snyder.
Yes.
Okey dokey.
All right.
One more thing.
All we have.
Yeah, go ahead, Roger.
Hey, Jeff, for those of you that don't know, I've been working at the city of Medford for about 26 years. And my last day is Friday.
You're gonna retire?
No, I'm going to work for ODOT Monday, so.
Oh.
Oh, really? No time in between?
2 days. That's all I need. So for information, it's not necessarily a board thing, but
Okay,
Well, that's
it'll be a
Still go-
shorter drive for me
a shorter drive?
from White City.
Oh, to get here,
Yeah,
not to get from your
here.
house. Okay,
Oh, yeah, it's a longer drive.
Yeah.
Longer commute.
Well, that's kind of cool. It's always an adventure to take on a new position.
Timing's great. I'm
Good.
one of the great resignations from the city. of Memphis.
yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
well, wish you luck on that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
Yeah, we'll have a list of traffic control devices that need some attention for you next week.
You know, Shane, the worst thing about going from sewer system to roadways is, I mean, in the last month, I've had more people approach me about miscellaneous roadway issues than you could ever imagine, you know, and I've never had questions about the sewer system.
you know that, you know, an Oregon State driver's license is equivalent to a traffic engineer's license.
That's right.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
drop your hammer.
we're adjourned. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
All right,
guys.
thank you, everybody.
And be well, everyone.
Okay, had a good time. And Carl, thanks for the lesson. All that stuff happened well before I even knew I was going to come to Oregon. So it was good background. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything on Mike and Wayne?